Breaking news, the Crown Prosecution Service is not going to be charging Reform UK MP, well, it was Reform UK, Rupert Lowe, in relation to those allegations made by Zia Youssef, the Reform chairman. Chris, this was always, in my view, going to be the outcome.
Yes, many thought so. These were claims about Rupert Lowe, which he thoroughly denied. Of course, claims about threats to people in Reform. But we have now a statement here from Malcolm McAfee, who's the head of the CPS's Special Crime Division. They say the following, that following a detailed review in evidence in relation to an allegation of threats, we've decided that no criminal charges should be brought against a sitting MP. Having considered a number of witness statements, we've concluded there's no sufficient evidence to have a realistic prospect of conviction. And they go on to say the CPS's role is to not decide whether a person is guilty, but to make a fair, independent and objective assessment about whether it's appropriate to present charges for a criminal court to consider. Based on that, their legal test, they say, for a criminal prosecution has not been met. I've just got off the phone to Rupert Lowe. He is currently on a boat off Great Yarmouth inspecting wind farms with RWE, which is a German energy company, on the way to Scroby Sands. I said to him, is this now over, Rupert Lowe, this civil war which has caused such damage to both, I think, Reform UK, Nigel Farage, yourself and others, people who support Reform UK don't want to see these battles being fought amongst themselves rather than taking on the established parties. He says it is not, and he has issued a 16-page letter before action against Zia Youssef, the party chairman, Lee Anderson, the Reform's chief whip, and Reform UK corporately itself. And he says that unless there's a response by tomorrow, he will issue formal legal action in the High Court for defamation against those three people. This is the end of part of this saga, but by no means the end of it at all.
Fascinating, Chris. That's Chris Hope, our political editor.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cyber criminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private Internet Access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
Well, we've got the panel with us, Stephen Pound and Mike Parry. Stephen Pound is a former MP.
Yeah.
I thought it was astonishing that Zia Youssef, the Reform chairman, went to the police to say, woe is me, I'd been threatened.
Yeah. Interestingly, Andrew, you actually said right back at the day that you felt that there was a whiff about this one.
I did.
And there was something, I remember you saying it on here, and I said, well, I'm going to reserve judgment. Then, the following week, a letter appears signed by all his members of staff saying he's one of the best bosses they've ever worked for. Now, my good friend Keir Cousins actually was the Labour candidate who got beaten by him in Great Yarmouth. He was a good mate of mine. Yeah. And quite interesting, the very strong emotions that Rupert Lowe engenders. He used to be the chairman of Southampton Football Club, and he was so massively unpopular there that they had a whip round for my mate Keir to stand against him. But look, the real problem with this is Reform need this like a hole in the head. And if they're going to go ahead now with legal cases, this is going to be really bad because, in all honesty, vicious backstabbing and infighting, that's the job of the
politics.
Other parties.
Yeah, exactly.
But also, aren't those members of Reform going to say, well, and they're joining in huge numbers, over 200,000, what are they paying their subscriptions for?
Expensive legal costs.
Huge legal costs, because Rupert Lowe is a man of some means.
Yes,
I mean, we're talking about...
he's worth.
Exactly. So he can afford to, go and see my lord and all that kind of stuff. But if Reform lose this, they could be handling huge bills.
There'd be seven figures.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't know if you've noticed, because, we're all slaves to news and all that, but in the last couple of weeks, I've been reading pieces where political commentators have been casting doubt on Nigel Farage's ability to hold a proper political party together. I don't know if you've seen them, but, this wave of populism, winning the Runcorn and Helsby by-election, but nothing else. And yet... my understanding was he's got quite a team going at Millbank, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Well, the fact that they managed to field more candidates in the local elections than actually either Conservatives or Labour shows how quickly they have mobilised an administrative element, which is obviously very impressive. But I think perhaps the temptation of people in the Westminster bubble or people who are very online, shall we say, is to say, well, infighting like this is going to ruin their chances at the election. I'm not sure it will.
Well, I'm not sure it will, but Rupert Lowe was a great asset to them.
He was, absolutely.
He was the hardest working MP in the Commons, not just in Reform, asked more questions than anybody else. He's out and about even today in his constituency, we hear. Doing his job and putting a load of time on, way and above. Now, quite recently, there was a by-election near me in a town called Sutton. It was nothing to do with the council elections. It just happened somebody died and they needed... I could not believe the organisation Reform brought to it, honestly. I was walking down Sutton High Street. Not only was the candidate there, a young woman, aged 30, but the crowds around them, and I got chatting to her. She'd heard from Lee Anderson, she'd heard from Nigel. She was, fascinated to hear that I worked at a news station where Nigel works, and I thought they were very, very well organised.
But Miriam, on your point, it's an important point. We've had, you think of another sort of charismatic single person who's tried to lead a political party, and I'm thinking of George Galloway. He wins a couple of by-elections, and then he disappears. And when he was asked after, he says, look, I didn't have the organisation, I didn't have the grassroots. If you don't have that, what Reform have now got is a base. They've now got a foundation. And what I'm hearing about what they've got at Millbank, which is, of course, where the good dear old Labour Party won in 1997, in that it's where Tony Benn was born, on that very, very site. What he's now got, he's got the organisation in place. Now, a lot of us are looking to see whether Reform are going to make some of the errors they made before. I think one of their councillors has already had to be deselected. That's one, but hundreds. So this is bad for Reform. However, what it actually pulls to mind is Reform a one-man party? I don't think it is anymore. Well, but you cannot deny Nigel Farage's charisma.
No, that's right.
I'm just going to have to stop you there because we have got a response from Rupert Lowe to read. The Metropolitan Police have today confirmed that they are dropping their investigation into the false allegations that I made threats against the Reform Party chairman. This was not normal political infighting. It was a sinister attempt to weaponise the criminal justice system against me, putting not just my political future, but my liberty at risk. All because I dared to raise constructive criticisms of Nigel Farage, stood firm on deporting illegal migrants and pushed for Reform to be run democratically, not as a vehicle to stroke one man's ego.
Wow.
How did Reform respond? With a brutal smear campaign for the sin of asking legitimate questions about the party's direction, policies and leadership. I was vilified and targeted. I'm ashamed to have shared a parliamentary platform with them, ashamed to have trusted them, ashamed to have called them friends, and it goes on.
Says Farage is no leader. He's a coward and a viper. I feel deeply embarrassed. I ever thought he was the man to lead.
Good gracious me.
Other opinions are available.
That is quite a response.
I mean, that's civil war inside Britain's newest political party, isn't it? Utter civil war.
That will make headlines, be huge stories in the newspaper tomorrow. Unbelievable, Stephen. Did you
take off in America?
Actually use the word viper.
Yeah.
Well, I think the key thing what's happening here is this is now, it's got legs, unlike vipers. This is going to run and run. We're going to see this in the courts. It's going to be dragged through the coals.
Surely they'll come to outer course.
Well, what I was just going to say is somebody like Ben Habib, who's actually a pretty rational and sensible person, surely he would actually say to Rupert, you're not doing the cause any good. Ultimately, Nigel Farage and Rupert Lowe agree with more than they disagree.
He's no longer a member of Reform. He left Reform.
I know he is, precisely so, but he's a big friend of Rupert Lowe's. And he is a rational and sensible person.
But Rupert Lowe has even started talking about founding his own party in opposition to Reform.
In effect, he has.
Obviously, we are talking about infighting, which is Nigel Farage
normal
consistently criticised the Conservative Party for infighting.
And it's what voters hate.
But, you two do your fair share of infighting, but not always, because I believe that you recently put your differences aside. There you go.
On a temporary
football match. We're looking at a picture of Stephen and Mike at which football game was it?
That's Craven Cottage, the Field of Dreams.
Yes, it's
Fulham Football Club.
Yeah, we didn't put our differences aside because I was the Everton supporter. I'm the good-looking one on the right, and the old man on the left is Stephen Pound, who's a Fulham fan. OK, Everton won 3-1 because I'd been telling Stephen for weeks, if not months, class is permanent, mate. A bit of temporary form, no good at all. I came out the victor. Simple as that, I'm afraid. Simple as that.
Well, if there's one thing worse than a bad loser, it's a bad winner.
Did you sit together?
We sat side by side, but not holding hands.
Yeah, and by the way, I bought all the drink.
And I drank it.
Winner's prerogative.
You did, yeah.
Did you really buy all the beers? Did you not buy any beers at all, Steve?
Well, it's very difficult because I
just have to get to the bar first because I'm faster on my feet. But that's been the case of working with Stephen all my life.
Thank you both, lively as always.